The most rancorous series since Bodyline for a lot. You'll consider it the cricket series of our lifetime, the Ashes 2-2. The Australian cricket coach is Andrew McDonald. Andrew, it's great to have you back in the studio.
Thanks for having us, Gerard.
Is there PTSD in that or a smile? What happens as you relive the moments that define the series?
It's felt nice to have a little bit of a rest, and I think the players would agree with that. But yeah, what an incredible series. It was like no other, really. It just had so many subplots, and in the end, as I think on the commentary there too, all seemed about a fair result in the end. A little bit disappointing that we didn't get to where we wanted to in terms of a series victory, but all said and done, really proud of the group and the way we were able to navigate through an away tour like that.
Yeah, so you were here before you set off on the Odyssey, and the idea was to bring the Mace home and the Ashes home, which you did, and then just not the final punctuation point. So how did you all balance up how to assess it and how to feel about it?
Yeah, it's one that I think it'll take a little bit of time, to be perfectly honest. And I think over time people will judge that. As I said, we're incredibly proud of the group. You know, we set off on the Odyssey, as you called it, World Test Championship first and foremost at the Oval against India. And I thought we played some really incredible cricket during that match, and it really set us up for the Ashes. And we started pretty hot in terms of 2 wins straight up. And I think when you set out on an away tour to give yourself the opportunity in 4 of those 5 test matches to have a really good look at victory, I think speaks volumes to the group, but also the way that we went about our work. And, tactics are critiqued to within an inch of their life. And, we felt like the majority of the time that the way that we wanted to play, we were able to maintain that. There were certainly pockets where England put us under some extreme pressure, and they played well in certain phases as well.
How do you review a series?
Yeah, well, we first and foremost take a little bit of time to decompress, and then over the last couple of weeks we've gone back through it, and a lot of the time from a coaching aspect, it's about your planning, your preparation, and as I said, giving the players the opportunity to go out there and do what they do best. We do review individuals within the series, anything that we can take forward. It's always a difficult one, so in 4 more years' time, a lot of that information then becomes relevant, but the opposition changes, our team changes. So, yeah, there won't be a hell of a lot of connection for the individuals, but I think our planning, our preparation, the way we set the tour up, there can be a lot taken from that. And we learn lessons from the past also, from past campaigns over there.
Give us a bit of a feel. So what did you do well and what didn't quite work? And then I've sort of got specifics in behind those.
Yeah, well, you can sort of plot your way through what you want to sort of ask around it. But we feel as though the preparation going in, that was something that was critiqued around having no practice game. We had sort of 3 different areas to bring together in terms of the IPL, the people that were in county cricket at home. And we felt as though we were able to bring that together nicely at Formby. We had a camp up there. We set the platform for how we wanted to go about it tactically. And also in terms of, potentially rotating our bowlers, what that looked like, making sure we kept a lot of freshness in the camp. And we felt in a series that had short turnarounds and was very attritional by the end of it. And I think people have come to understand how attritional that cricket was with some of the injuries that have been disclosed at the sort of back end of the series. But we felt as though we were able to keep the group in a nice space to be able to go out there and perform. We had some freshness at the end. Our tactics, as I said, we were really clear internally how we wanted to go about it, and I thought Pat did an outstanding job majority of the time in terms of implementing those. And most of all, it's about winning those key moments. And we saw in the first couple of test matches we were able to seize those key moments. And then as the series went along, we probably missed an opportunity at Leeds where we had the game on our terms. Couldn't quite get over the line there. And Manchester were totally outplayed. And then back to the Oval where day one probably set the scene for getting behind the game. We had a really good opportunity there and missed some chances in the field. And that really probably defined that last test match.
How physically grueling was it with you? As you say, we learnt the toll in the aftermath. You were living that in real time.
It was. Yeah. It was. The short turnarounds lent itself to being that way. In between a lot of the test matches, I think the fans would probably agree that it was good for them,
yes.
To wake up and only have 3 days between test matches, but for the players to get themselves up again. And I think we saw that as the tour went along for both teams. I think errors started to creep in. I think we were a lot cleaner, no doubt, at the start of the series in terms of our execution. And that's one thing within that sort of tactical space. It's one thing to have a plan, but then the second part of it is to be able to execute it. And there was times that definitely, I think that the fatigue element of the series, the demand of an away series, it's difficult to win on the road, and that sort of shone through towards the end of the series.
How brave was Pat at the end to be playing with what afflicted him?
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, that was a significant sort of fracture in the wrist, and for him to be able to push through, keep presenting, and to see a fast bowler navigate his way through 6 Test matches plus the load of captaincy, for him to be going the way he was at the back end of the series is full credit to him in terms of his preparation and in terms of his mental capacity to be able to cope with the demands of A, being skipper, and then B, being a frontline fast bowler. And there was others to speak of as well. I think Steve Smith's wrist injury, I think that happened after the second Test match, and we didn't really understand the full significance of that until the end of the series. And then clearly Mitchell Stark's another one. So there are a few sort of moving parts that we've got to navigate through in the build to a World Cup, which we know we'll get onto a little bit later.
Yeah. The batting side of things, it just even the study of the averages, just not enough runs from the key figures. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, I think the positive out of it all was that we got a lot of starts, and we weren't able to sort of maximise those scores. And I thought Usman Khawaja was outstanding. And we said before we left that it was going to be two styles clashing.
Yep.
And I thought Usman Khawaja really stuck to his game, understood how he wanted to go about it. His method was really, really clear, and the outputs shone through. Significant contributions, big scores. Full credit to him. Some of the other batters, there's no doubt that they'll be disappointed that the amount of starts that they got and they weren't able to capitalise. But that is the nature of cricket in England. You'll have days where you're batting, it's bright sunshine, the ball's doing very little, and then other days it'll be overcast, the lights will be on, and it becomes more difficult. So, and we felt as though across the series, and this is no excuse, but we felt as though at times, the conditions were conspiring against us early in the series, where we were tending to bat under lights, with the clouds and the overheads. And as I said, that's not an excuse, but it did no doubt make the batter's task a lot more difficult. So that's probably an indication at times of those starts that they got. They were working really, really hard, but they're always vulnerable in those types of conditions.
The battle of ideologies was like something I've never seen before. And from the first ball, so that England would throw the first punch, which is not really in their national character. Was it everything that you imagined? Was it even more so? How did you come away from the two sides? It was almost an unnatural game. You were both trying to play such different styles.
Yeah, I think both styles were natural to the players that were picked. You can talk about the aggression of their batting unit, but equally Mitch Marsh and Travis Head can lay claims to playing a similar type of game. We've got complementing skill sets. We weren't going to ask our players to go over there and play any differently. You want to set your team up with the strengths that you've got. And the players that we picked, they played to their strengths. And as I said, like Mitch Marsh and Travis Head, their counter-attacking ability was second to none. And that brilliant century of Mitch Marsh at Leeds was something to behold. In terms of what we expected, I think we got everything that we expected. There was no real surprises in the way that they were going to play and go about it. We knew that our bowling unit were going to have high runs per over. We knew that if we could mitigate the boundaries, that would give us an opportunity to control the tempo of the game. And we never compromised the way that we wanted to get the opposition out. And that's one thing within those tactics. You did see a few more sweepers out at times, and no doubt that would have been discussed on the outside. But internally, we were really clear about how we wanted to get them out, and we never compromised that. And you've got to give credit at certain times to your opponent. And the way that Zach Crawley played, in particular in Manchester, took the game away, and that was an innings that will age really, really well for him and that team.
So in the analytics at the start of Bazball, the boundaries increased and the singles dropped. In this series, so you protected the boundaries and gave up a lot of singles.
We gave up more singles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you think, in retrospect, too many?
No, we felt as though it's always a balance. So we brought the boundary percentages down across the series. As I said, we never wanted to compromise how we were going to get them out, and we were prepared at certain times to give away more singles, and that was the way that we structured up. And at 2-0 up, we felt as though those tactics were working well. And even at Leeds, I don't think it was the singles that brought about our downfall in that match. I think we had a really good opportunity with the ball at certain times and with the bat. I think we were 1 for 100 in the second innings, and found our way to 4 for 115 and probably let an opportunity slip there. And that's nothing against the batting unit, but equally with the ball, we had a really good look at winning that game as well. And we don't really think that was underpinned by allowing singles at certain times. And the one point we were debating a lot of the time was, pardon the pun, but the point fielder, whether it was up or back to save the boundary, whether that player could have been on the one. And as series unfolded for individuals, the point was up, and for others it was back. So it was a real balance. It was a real game of cat and mouse, and it was interesting to be on the inside and being navigating through that with Pat and with the bowling unit. But as I said, we're really clear on the inside as to what we wanted to do, and there's no doubt that at times that we potentially went away from what we were trying to achieve, and that's forced upon you by your opponent at certain times.
The flash points, was the Bairstow stumping worth it in the end, and all that it stirred up in England?
I don't think it stirred up anything. If those who were at Edgbaston probably would have seen that the Ashes was well and truly alive then before the Bairstow stumping. So yeah, that crowd was relentless. The energy that they brought, and I think that to Brendan and Ben's credit, they used that to their advantage as well. It felt like they were happy to not incite. Incite's not the right word, but encourage the crowd to make it difficult for us as the away team. So that probably got a little bit more energy on the back of the Bairstow one and gave them the avenue to put that forward to the greater public.
Are you unrepentant in that dismissal?
Yeah, I think it's clear. I think Pat's on the field, the players were happy with it, and yeah, it was out, got sent upstairs, and I think the rest is history.
The ball change at the Oval. So this is going to live in Ashes law in our country for a long time. How do you feel about it now with a month on?
Yeah, I said at the time, I've never seen a ball change create such a tactical shift. A ball that was, the opposition were trying to get to reverse, a lot of fielders in front of the wicket, stump to stump bowling, and then to change to 2/3 slips, no fielders or not no fielders, but only a couple of fielders in front of the wicket. So it had a significant change in the tactical implementation of what they were doing. I think that probably speaks volume to what ball they were given.
Is there any so something should change in the aftermath of that? Is there any indication that it would? Is that something for Cricket Australia to take up with the ICC? Have you had any feedback coming the other way? It just feels like a moment that shouldn't be allowed to pass without there being some sort of reform around that process.
I'd say no doubt that the ICC are looking into it. We did have a ball change in Leeds as well, where I think Mitch Marsh was bowling to Zach Crawley, which gave us a little bit of an advantage. So when there is a ball change, the umpire probably decides that it potentially doesn't need to be worse than the ball that they're replacing. And then it's not always going to be exact in the box of balls that they've got there. But yeah, there probably needs to be a look into how they make that decision and who's ultimately accountable for that. And the two officiating umpires decided on that ball, and I'm not sure that they thought that ball would do as much as it did. But there's no doubt, as I said, the ICC would no doubt be looking into that, how they can get that to be a little bit more exact and not shift the game as significantly as what we saw at the Oval.
And was it disappointing at the end that both teams didn't come together in that traditional way to share a drink and maybe given that we all spent the series sort of bitterly opposed, that there wasn't sort of that, I don't know whether it's a healing or even just as a symbol to everybody that at the end we all come together. Was that disappointing that didn't happen?
They held strong to their word after the second Test match. Yeah. I think it's one of the great things about our game, and that cricket allows that at the end of a series. I think it's a missed opportunity. I think both teams would say that. We were disappointed. Our boys were disappointed that opportunity didn't eventuate. And as I said, cricket's a unique game at the end of the series, and going back into yesteryear, it used to be after each day's play and after each match. These days it's at the end of the series. So after such a wonderful series, not to be able to cap that off with that opportunity to sit back with your opponent, decompress and reflect, really. And through that reflection also comes great learning opportunities for both teams, and some of those younger players in that change room, just to listen to those older experienced players within the room. I think that's one of the great things about our game, and it's a missed opportunity.
Andrew McDonald is in the studio. What comes next is the World Cup, and the preparations on the white ball front really get intense this week with the series in South Africa. We'll explore that. The next phase of Australian cricket is the white ball and the build-up to the World Cup, September, October in India. Andrew McDonald is in the studio. So this is an exciting phase. It's especially exciting on Thursday night that Mitch Marsh is captaining the country. Tell me about Mitch Marsh, the leader, as to the why and the what we might see.
an amazing character around the group, brings people together, great connection with not only the internal but the external. I feel like he's come a long way in his journey, and the ability to lead and share those experience for the next crop coming through, I think is especially important, and I think he's going to be a wonderful leader. At the moment, it's just a series by series nature. Clearly, Pat's out of the one-day internationals, and we've got a space in the T20 captaincy area, and we're looking at Mitch to take his opportunity there and potentially forecast forward to building a campaign around the World Cup.
How concerning is the Glenn Maxwell injury that has him coming home?
Oh, it's concerning. And the reason why it's concerning is it's happened a couple of times. So if we remember back to the 3-match series against India, he played in the first one and sort of pulled up a bit lame from that. And then coming into camp for this one has had another small setback. So there's no doubt on the back of what was a horrendous injury that he suffered that there's always going to be a balance between the load that he can take on. And unfortunately, he's had a small setback here. But we're confident he'll be right for the World Cup. But you look at key structural players in our 11 for that World Cup campaign. He's almost irreplaceable, three-dimensional. I think he strikes at about 130-odd in one-day international cricket. His ability to turn games, he can bat anywhere. He's a good player against spin. So, we'll have some serious questions to answer if he's not right. But at the moment, all the information is that he will be right. It's a small setback, and we're optimistic around that.
How settled would the squad be in your mind as to what's going to the World Cup, and how much is being auditioned for in the next little bit?
Well, I think we're far from settled just with the injury room at the moment. Obviously, with Mitchell Starc, Steve Smith, Pat Cummins, and Glenn Maxwell all unavailable at this stage due to injury. As the information on all of them is they will be right for the World Cup, which is positive. But you never know. Obviously, when you're coming off injury, if there was a reoccurrence, then that could shift our thinking a little bit. So is this an audition potentially for spaces that may open up in South Africa? There's no doubt about that, and we feel as though we've got some exciting talent coming through. You look at Aaron Hardy in that all-rounder space, getting his opportunity. Spencer Johnson as well, left arm fast bowler. So we've got some new players coming through, and we feel as though it's the right time for that as well, to blend that youth with the experience. And after a World Cup, generally speaking, there is a bit of a transition and there's a build to the next one. I think there's 7 players missing from 2019, heading into this World Cup that aren't considered at the moment. So that's significant turnover. So there's no doubt we'll need to refresh and recharge. And if anything were to move or shift on us, then we've got that information from South Africa. And also, I'm remiss of me not to mention Tanveer Sangha as well in that spinning department as well, young, exciting leg spinner. So if something were to happen to Adam Zampa, we're hoping to get some game time into him in South Africa.
Is there a scenario in which Travis Head and Mitch Marsh is the opening pair in the World Cup?
I've seen that's been discussed, and it might have been discussed on your station.
Tim Payne,
was it Tim Payne, was it?
Yeah.
Look, he batted at 4 in the last game in the 3-match series in India. Travis
Warner.
Warner, sorry. Yeah. And Travis Head and Mitch Marshall going well at the top. So Davey was coming off injury. We felt like we didn't want to disrupt the way that they were performing in that 3-match series. So we made the shift to put David Warner down into the middle order. He's done it a little bit. It's not something that he's done a lot of. And, reflecting on David's sort of last 18 months in the one-day international team, I think he was our one-day international player of the year last year. He's averaging 50 plus. He does a lot of good stuff at the top, but we want to leave South Africa with a batting unit that is willing to do anything that we need for the team going through the World Cup, and that may be some batting order shifts. So we're open-minded to what the batting order can look like, whether we need to maximise the power play, whether we want to back end some innings at different stages. And when we go to India, if you bat first versus bat second, there can be a big difference. The dew comes in, and it can be easier to get back-ended runs in the second innings of the game versus the first innings of the game. So we want to be flexible.
And what is your attitude to that long-term question of Dave Warner's ambition to play a final Test match in Sydney? Have you got a position?
No position at the moment. We're firmly fixed on the World Cup and what that looks like, and we'll turn our attention to the Australian summer at the back end of the World Cup. And it's a long campaign. I think the players and staff will be on the road for 3 odd months, and we'll take a breath at the end of that and line up what the Australian summer looks like for us. Do
you feel? I haven't actually looked at the 50-over record in recent times in India. Do you feel confident in those conditions for a World Cup?
Yeah, last last games against India, we won that series 2-1. We played 3 different types of teams. We had 2 spinners in one of them. We had 3 quicks and a spinner, and then we had 8 batters. So we feel as though we've got 3 different ways of playing with the squad. We'll have a flexible squad across that 15. So we feel as though we're as well prepared as what we can be for an Indian World Cup. A lot of our players play in the IPL, so that they're familiar with the conditions. It just depends on what you get on the day. But as I said, across the 15-man squad, we feel as though we'll have the flexibility to play 3 different types of teams, and that should cover most of the bases that we have in those 9 preliminary games to qualify for the semis.
Right. Early hours of Thursday morning, the first of the T20s in South Africa. The real interest in this tour is what happens in the ODIs. So good luck. You fly tomorrow?
Fly tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Travel well. We'll keep tabs on your endeavours and see you when you're back here.
No, thanks very much, Gerard.
Andrew McDonald, the Australian cricket coach, with me in the studio.